안녕하세요. 저는 금융투자협회 조사국제부 김한조 차장입니다. 오늘은 러시아 자본시장의 대표적인 유관기관인 러시아 거래소, 모스크바 거래소 모엑스와 러시아 자본시장과 투자기회라는 제목으로 웨비나를 진행하려고 합니다. 러시아의 최근 주식시장은 굉장히 빠른 상승세를 보이고 있고 경제 여건이나 자본시장 여건이 굉장히 좋아지고 있어서 오늘 웨비나가 여러분의 투자 기회를 모색하는데 많은 도움이 될 것이라고 생각합니다. 오늘 웨비나 진행상의 주의사항을 간단하게 말씀을 드리겠는데요. 오늘 웨비나는 여러분이 익숙하신 줌 비디오로 진행이 되고 그 웨비나 진행 중에 궁금하신 사항이 있으시면 언제든지 채팅창을 통해서 저희 쪽으로 질문을 주시면 저희가 질문을 번역해서 그 스피커분들한테 전달해 드리도록 하겠습니다. 오늘 행사에 참여해 주신 분들은 모엑스 러시아 모스크바 거래소에서 3분, 그다음에 러시아의 펄프 팀버, 그러니까 목재 생산 기업인 세게자 그룹에서 한 분이 총 4분의 연사가 발표를 해주시겠고 한 분이 러시아 모엑스에서 진행을 맡아주시도록 하겠습니다. Before we start the webinar, I would like to thank Maria Kharlashkina, the Deputy Head of Strategy from Moex, and Rovshan Aliev, CFO of Segezha Group, for arranging this webinar from the beginning. Today we have many audience from the Korean financial market. I also express my sincere gratitude to all the audience for being here with us despite your busy schedule. Now I will introduce today's moderator, Ms. Alina Shicheva from Moex in Moscow. Alina, over to you.
Hello, dear colleagues. Thank you very much. It is an honor and pleasure to participate in today's webinar. And I want to thank Kofia for coming up with an idea and organizing this, I hope, wonderful webinar, this wonderful meeting. So our first speaker is Maria Kharlashkina. Maria is the head of strategy on Moscow Exchange. Maria will do an overview of Russian financial markets. Maria will highlight different key numbers and factors concerning Moscow Exchange. And now I am trying to share my screen so you can see Maria's presentation. I hope
Thank you, Alina.
It's working.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Moscow Exchange, I would like to thank you for your interest in Russian financial market and Moscow Exchange and Russian companies. We hope that today's meeting will be useful and we will find areas of mutual interest to facilitate cooperation between Russian financial market and Korean financial market. So we wait a few moments for slides to appear on the screen. Thank you. So let me start with a brief summary of the Russian financial market. Please slide number 2. A few key facts. Okay, so
is it working or not?
It's not on the full screen format. If you just make it bigger.
I'm trying to, yes.
So first of all, there are no capital controls in Russia, no stamp duties, and Russian ruble is fully convertible. There are also no restrictions over investments in Russian companies for foreign investors. And the legislation provides a wide range of guarantees in respect of foreign investors. Also important are, I would like to mention that Russia has a sovereign credit rating of investment grade, which is BBB by Fitch. My colleagues will later show you that the Russian securities market is also quite attractive to investors because we still have quite low PE multiple and high dividend yield of the whole market, and are several companies, especially very high dividend yield, provide to investors. Next slide, please. Slide number 3. Just a few words about the Russian macroeconomic situation that is quite stable recently. GDP growth forecast is around 3.6% this year. International reserves accumulated in the amount of $600 billion US. Foreign debt to GDP ratio is low, only 28%, and fiscal balance and inflation are under control. As inflation is especially important factor that Bank of Russia keeps under control, and you can see that recently we have quite stable and even decreasing inflation. And now let me give you a brief introduction of Moex products and services and Russian financial infrastructure in general. Please, slide number 4. Here you can see the history of Moscow Exchange. It was formed in December 2011 as a result of the merger between two largest Russian exchange groups, Moex Group, which is the oldest domestic exchange, and by that time was a leading operator of securities, foreign exchange, and money market, and RTS Group, by the time are the leader in derivatives products. So this merger created a vertically integrated public trading market across all major asset classes. Moscow Exchange, the leading stock exchange in Russia, and also the biggest exchange in Central and Eastern Europe. And Moscow Exchange, as a united company, held the initial public offering of its shares in 2013, and now it is traded. Its shares traded on Moex, and the ticker is Moex. So please, slide number 5. Moscow Exchange is one of the few exchanges globally, as you can see on this slide, that offers trading in all major asset classes. So we are one of the most diversified exchange in the world. Among our products are equities, bonds, derivatives, FX, money market instruments, and commodities. Moex also provides full range of post-trade services. And now slide number 6, which shows how we are like one of the most diversified exchange. And we are also unique because initially Moex was launched as FX exchange actually. So the first asset class that we provided was a foreign exchange, and later all other asset classes followed. So now please, slide number 7. Here you can see our positions in global context. We are the second largest exchange by an exchange bonds trading value, which you can see on the left up chart. We are in top 10 by derivatives trading, among top 25 exchanges in the world by equities trading, and Moscow Exchange is in top 15 world's largest exchanges as a public company by market capitalization. Please, slide number 8. I already mentioned that we provide the full range of trading and post-trading services, and we are vertically integrated exchange group. That means that the group includes the Central Securities Depository, which is the National Settlement Depository, and the Clearing Center that performs CCP functions on all market segments, which allow Moscow Exchange to offer its clients a full spectrum of trading and post-trading services. So we have 100% ownership in CCP and almost 100%, 99.9% ownership in CSD. And our CCP is one of the most capitalized in the world. Next slide, please, slide number 9. As I mentioned, Moscow Exchange is itself a public company listed and traded on its own trading platform. And we are among the top 20 most liquid stocks in Russia. And Moex is owned by leading Russian banks and international investors. Central Bank is the largest shareholder, but its stake does not exceed 12%. And we have one of the largest free floats, highest free floats among Russian public companies, which is more than 60%. And most of this free float, more than 90% of the free float, is owned by foreign investors, by international funds. Please, next slide, number 10. Here we show the main reforms, financial market reforms that have been implemented over the last decade. So the most important. And now the financial infrastructure in Russia meets the highest international standards. We have, as I mentioned, CCP, Central Securities Depository. There are Euroclear and Clearstream provide services for Russian equities and fixed income instruments. We have T+ settlement cycle, direct market access and sponsored market access to our international investors. And recently we have implemented foreign clearing membership. So now foreign participants can become direct clearing members on almost all our markets. That's a really important development. Please, the next slide, number 11. There is a very diversified investor base on Moscow Exchange. Among Moex trading and clearing participants are Russian investors and international investors, both retail and institutional. And we have quite a high share of HFT and algo traders that provide very high liquidity on all our markets. So, for example, you can see that in equities and in derivatives, the share of international investors is very high. It's almost 50%. So half of all trading comes from foreign investors. So next slide, please. I guess number 13. 13, the next one. Here you can see international funds holdings in Russian equities. This is a publicly available information. This is not like all international investors, only those that disclose their ownership. But you can see that we have investors from almost all over the world. The majority of them comes from US, Europe, and UK. Unfortunately, now the share of Asian investors is quite low, about like 2 or 3%, but there is a huge potential to increase this share in the nearest future. We hope so. Please, slide number 14. Here you can see that Moex offers a wide range of Russian financial products and services to international investors and plans to expand this range. And it will further facilitate convenient on-exchange trading for international participants. As I mentioned, our markets are among the most liquid on-exchange markets in the world. Please, slide number 15. Here you can see a very interesting recent trend. We have a record high inflow of retail investors on securities market in Russia. You can see the dynamics on the left chart. Now we have more than 12 million retail investors participating in the market. So huge increase over the last 5 years. And now you can see that 8% of the Russian population invests in securities market. This happened due to several factors. First of all, the decreasing interest rates recently forced many people to choose securities market instruments over bank deposits. But also very important role played the so-called digitalization of the market. The whole process of onboarding for Russian retail clients is very easy. So all the accounts now can be opened remotely. So this is online account opening, online trading, using very convenient market applications. So this trend continues, and it further increases the liquidity. So the major two categories of participants in our equity market, for example, are international investors and Russian retail investors. Please, slide number 16. Here you can see that there is a trend of local placements by Russian companies. A few years ago, like maybe 10 years ago, there was a tendency of Russian companies listing abroad, mostly in London. Some of them did IPOs in New York, but during the past few years, most of the placements hold on Moex. This is all because the financial infrastructure, Russian financial infrastructure meets the best international standards. And my colleague Natalia will tell you more about the Russian issuers. So I think that the next slide I would like to show you, slide number 18. It shows how Moscow Exchange promotes sustainable development principles. We do it in several ways, actually. So firstly, we lead by example. We ensure sustainability is integrated into our own Moscow Exchange strategic planning, as well as corporate governance and risk management. We have dedicated resources to enable the sustainability work to move forward. Secondly, we play the important role as a financial market infrastructure, and we have responsibility to support listed companies, issuers in the transition to a sustainable and low carbon economy. We ensure that all market players are aware of the opportunities associated with ESG finance and new ESG financial products available on Moscow Exchange. This year, we plan to publish our guidance on ESG best practice and reporting in Russia. We also adopted 7 sustainable development goals, which are presented on this slide, and we publish our annual sustainable report, which is like of great demand by international investors. Moscow Exchange is included in several ESG ratings and indices. So I guess that here I will hand it over to my colleague Vladimir Ovcharov from the Moscow Exchange equity market. And thank you very much for your attention. Vladimir, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm just trying to turn on my video. Next slide, please. So currently, Moscow Exchange equities market has more than 200 instruments, Russian local equities available for trading. Also, we have plenty of exchange traded funds, DRs, and international stocks traded on Moscow Exchange. Market capitalization reached $748 billion this year, and our ADTV, average daily trading volume, is $1.6 billion. Currently, we have 300 market participants who is providing access to Moscow Exchange for their end clients. We have, as Maria said, we have a standard settlement cycle, which is very convenient for global investors as well. Our major products is the direct market access and sponsored market access, which allows international investors to decrease their operational risk while connecting to a Russian local market, because these services allows international traders to have a lot of pre-trade risk controls on the level of Moscow exchange rather than on broker side, so which is very convenient for their trading. We have opening and closing options, which is very popular among international investors as well, because they can execute their interest with a lot of liquidity concentrated with auctions. Currently, National Securities Depository, which is part of Moscow Exchange Group, has more than 66 trillion rubles in assets under custody, and our market share as exchange versus OTC trading is substantially growing last year's towards 92% on exchange activity in comparison to OTC. Next slide, please. As you may see within the slide, our volumes is substantially growing year over year. And for example, we have 92% growing from 2019 till 2020. So we have traded more than 23 trillion Russian rubles. And also you may see that the number of active clients is substantially growing as well. Additionally, I would say that we have a lot of say funded accounts. So it's not like the clients opened accounts without any balance with it, but the account is fully funded and available for execution from these accounts. Next slide. Again, as Maria mentioned during her presentation, we have a lot of money inflows to Moscow Exchange from retail investors, and last year the retail investments in securities surpass retail bank deposits in terms of growing. As you may see, the growth reached 88% year over year. So last year we have 6 trillion rubles came to local capital markets, and as you may see, this growth is much more faster than deposits. So last year, maybe because of pandemics, but anyway, Russian retail preferred to invest in capital markets rather than keep their money on deposits. Here you may see the retail investor portfolio, which is well diversified, 80% allocated to Russian equities and 13% allocated to international equities. Last year, we have launched a new product which allows Russian retail investors to trade international equities and particularly US stocks. So now we may see that volumes is growing, and now the Russian retail can have more diversified portfolio in terms of issuers, which have not well presented on Moscow Exchange with local names. Next slide, please. Also, last year we have presented extended hours where our participants may trade from 7 p.m. Moscow time up until 23:50 p.m. Moscow time. So it's part of our strategic view to extend hours. And next slide, please. By the way, with our evening session, we have a lot of volumes, and a lot of liquidity comes from international funds. This year, Moscow Exchange started to provide services with early hours, morning trading session on FX and derivatives, and later this year, particularly in December 6th, we will start trading from 7 a.m. Moscow time on Moscow Exchange equities market, which is about 1 o'clock Seoul time. So we strongly believe that this should help us to attract Asian investors to Russian local market. As you may see, the trend of commodities spread across the globe. Russia being resource country concentrated with commodities might be very interested for international investors, and particularly Asian investors. And I strongly believe that our new products and services extension will help to simplify connectivity to Russian market. Next slide, please. Going forward with international capital markets, last year we have launched these new products I was talking about, international equities. So we are seeing that the volumes is growing. We have observed a lot of interest from Russian local investors to allocate some of their money to international equities. Currently, we have 173 US stocks available on Moscow Exchange, and till the end of year, we will increase these the number of instruments up till 500. And next year, we have a plan to double this figure. Also, we do have plans to for geographical exposure, and we are going to include Asia, particularly Hong Kong, in our value proposition. Also, we are thinking to expand services with European equities this year, and next year we will be looking to more precisely to Asia, and who knows, maybe South Korea as well. So currently we are just trying to figure out best interest for our retail investors, opportunities with international markets, and so on and so forth. Next slide. Talking about auctions, as I said previously, we have substantial execution with closing auctions, because with international indices rebalance, we can see a lot of interest and a lot of volume concentrated on closing auction. So we strongly believe that this is a very convenient instrument to execute interest for international investors, but also by extending trading hours up to late time, and in early hours, we believe that we may kind of control concentration and spread the volumes for the whole day. Next slide. Last year we observed Russian local market of IPOs woke up. Basically, we had very successful IPOs as well as SPOs on Russian market. I think that my colleague will describe more on this. So let's not stop here. Next slide. Next one. We do not have so much time, so I would like to concentrate on more interesting topic. As I said, we have sponsored market access product, which is very popular among international investors. I should say that here with this presentation, we included the particular links where you can find contact person among Russian brokers as well as international brokers who is providing access to Moscow exchange. We may introduce yourselves and arrange meetings with local brokers and international ones who is providing access. So you may face-to-face talk about your particular cases, and we used to develop tailor-made solutions for internationals. So we are always open to discuss your potential connectivity to Moscow exchange. So talking about our product and our value proposition to international investors, currently our strategy is to increase trading hours, to decrease operational risks for international investors, providing such services like sponsored market access. And last but not least, next slide, please. Next one. The last but not least is international clearing membership, which is highlighted by Maria Kharlashkina previously. So I should say that Moscow Exchange Group allocates a lot of resources to develop risk management capabilities for end clients with the National Clearing Center. This year, we are extending services with this particular way, where international clearing agent can be onboarded directly with the central counterparty, which is National Clearing Center, and have direct exposure to CCP rather than have any substantial risk limits and risk appetite for Russian local brokers. So we strongly believe that this feature may attract a lot of global names who is providing access to global markets for end clients with very effective way in terms of collateral management and so on and so forth. So connecting directly to CCP allows you to substantially decrease credit risk and increase limits for your activity on local market. So that's it from my side. We'll be happy to answer your questions further with Q&A session. And now I would like to pass to my colleague with next topic.
Yes, let me introduce Natalia. Natalia is a director of department about top issuers on Moscow Exchange from the perspective of turnover, dividend yields, etc. Natalia, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me introduce to you the most liquid papers that are traded in the Moscow exchange. So the most liquid paper, which trades nearly 25 billion US dollars for the first 6 months this year in Moscow Stock Exchange, is Sberbank, which is the largest universal bank in Russia, Central and Eastern Europe, which has a market capitalization of nearly 100 billion US dollars and a free float approaching nearly 50%. So this is a finance sector which is mostly actively traded in Moscow. The second one is a metals and mining company, Norilsk Nickel, which is one of the largest producers of nickel, platinum, copper, and palladium in the world, which has a market capitalization of 54 billion US dollars and a free float of 33%. The third largest paper trading in the Moscow exchange is Gazprom, a company with a market capitalization of 90 billion US dollars and free float of more than 50%, which is the largest global gas producer by reserves. And the rest, Lukoil, we have 3 largest oil companies from Russia, which is Lukoil, Rosneft, and Tatneft, which are also in the top 10 most liquid stocks in the Russian market. I should also draw your attention to the IT company Yandex, which is a company of 26 billion US dollar capitalization and a very high free float approaching nearly 100%, which is the largest IT company in Russia and the leading provider of internet-related products and services, not only in Russia, but in the other countries as well. We also have some other metals and mining companies in the top 10 area, which are gold producer companies, which is Polymetal, goes into top 10 global gold and top 5 global silver producers, and Polus, the 10th largest company trading in the Russian market, which is a top 5 global gold producer and the largest gold mining company in the world. We also track companies not only by their turnover, but there is also a focus from the retail side. We call it retail portfolio or retail bias. And retail, which as was previously mentioned, retail makes up more than 40% of daily turnovers in the Moscow equity turnover, Moscow equity trading, which is a very high percentage, frankly speaking. So it's very important to see where retail is looking at, and judging by the net purchases of retail investors in the Moscow market, we can see that the high favorites are Gazprom, Sberbank, so nearly the same names, but here we can see some other names which are not in the top 10 category, but still fall into sight of retail investors. So these companies, the new companies, are Surgutneftegas, also a large oil producer in Russia, a very cash-rich company, so to say. We have Aeroflot. This is the leading transportation, so the air transportation company in Russia. We have telecommunication MTS, which is also favorite of Russian retail investors. We have another bank here, the second largest bank in Russia, VTB, which also is picked up by retail investors. And we have another metals and mining company, Severstal, which is kind of very attractive to retail investors in Russia as well. So the composition of the top 10 trading and the top 10 retail favorites slightly differ, but not very different from the point of view of representation by industries. The Moex index is composed of 38% by oil and gas companies, and we have here the largest oil and gas producers in the world, not only in Russia. The next 19% of the Moex index are represented by finance. These are the largest Russian banks, Sber, VTB, and some others. Then go metals and mining sector, IT, and the rest. Next slide, please. The Russian companies offer fairly high dividend yields. And here you can see that top 10 dividend yields represented by MTS, the telecommunication company, Severstal, metals and mining company, Fosagra, fertilizer, and the rest reach 10 or even single-digit returns. That's for the 2020 period. If we look at the dividend payout number or figure, then we can see that these companies are paying, some of them are paying 100% of their net profit to the shareholders. And in average, the payout ratio is approaching 50% of net profit. The high dividend yields of Russian companies attract a lot of retail investors, and we should, we should draw your attention to the fact that retail investors have become a fairly strong force in the local stock market. They brought $150 billion incremental inflow into the local market just last year in 2020. Again, I will repeat that they make up more than 40% of daily trades in the Russian market, and partially these inflows of retail new money into the market was driven by these, fairly high dividend yields that are provided by top Russian names. Next slide, please. The overall performance of the Russian market is positive in 2020. We can see that the Moscow Exchange Index is trading at about 10% plus year to date. Some companies are trading more than 20% year to date. Some are below, like Polus, for example, the pink line that is under the water this year, but it may be explained by the fact that last year Polus company, which I will repeat is the top 5 gold producer in the world, has outperformed the market and traded more than 100% plus in 2020. So this year, a partial downturn dynamics can be explained by a very high growth that was performed by this company last year. So this is my part of the presentation, and I will give floor to our next speaker, who will just give you the case study of our new company.
Yes, we're moving forward to the next speaker. It is our colleagues from Segezha Group. Segezha Group is one of the largest timber producer. So let me introduce the CFO of Segezha Group, Rovshan Aliev.
Yeah, well, yes, thank you. While Elena is uploading the presentation, my colleagues was saying they covered a lot of oil and gas and steel and fertilizer companies, which is Russia is very well known for. However, we are representing a sector which been untapped for many years. Some of our Bloomberg editors called us a green gold of Russia. So we are a largest fiber-based, fully integrated forestry-based company. So we're managing the largest forest resources in Russia. We are managing pulp production and paper. We are the largest producer of timber, as well as a CLT producer and a birch plywood producer. So it's a fully integrated business model between the Russia with presence in 7 different European countries the main manufacturing being in Russia. Over the past 5 years, the company is relevant put together from actions of different assets. And in general, the forestry industry in Russia have been underinvested and overlooked for the last 40 years. So we are in position and put a strategy where we are consolidated and assets and the forestry base and building as a major player, not only for the Russian, but in the global perspective. As of today, in the products where we are represented, which is the sack paper, which is packaging paper, we are number 2 producer in only, number 2 producer in industrial sack paper, we are number 5 producer in birch plywood, and by the end of the year, we are constructing a new factory, which we will be a number 3 producer in the world, as well as we are Russia's largest timber producer. 2020, despite of being a very challenging year from the pricing and demand perspective, from the COVID factors, we have reached about 1 billion in revenue and 250 million EBITDA. We are holding the largest margin. The margins was by 2020 was 25%. As we are going through the 21, we will be going back to the normal level of activity and a normal level of pricing. We will be growing year by year by 50%. And our marginality is going to the normalized level of about 25 to 30%. Now, there's a lot of companies out of Russia which you know that is vertically integrated and based on the cheap source of the material. However, the key ingredients that we have about ourselves, it is the forestry resources. And if we go to the next slide, the forestry resources in the world are split between 2 places. It's usually a softwood and a hardwood. The softwood, it's the forest that is only growing in 3 places in the world, which is North America. It is the Scandinavian countries of the European, as well as Russia. The hardwood is represented in Latin America, mainly, then Asia, and lesser degree in Africa. Now, if we look at the 2 type of the woods, all the packaging, all the craft liner, all the carton boards, or anything that needs to have a durability are produced and can only be produced from the softwood. A tissue, a toilet paper, hygiene papers are produced from the softwood, which is more on the Latin America side. Now, if we look at the softwood, as I mentioned, from 3 places in the world where it's growing, US, Scandinavians, and Russia, you will see on the top right chart that the Scandinavians and North Americans have already harvesting penetration, which means the rate as much as they use in their forest, have reached on average about 75%. And anything beyond that level, it is economical inefficient, and in some extent, they're hitting the ecological and the natural barriers where they cannot penetrate and produce more forest. So the only place in the world which is left with a large capacity of the forest to actually produce, and from that forest is a key ingredient to produce all other finished goods, it's actually Russia. And we here are very well positioned for that. Now, if we look at the market where we are producing and where we are participating, you will see that the market is driven by the mega trends towards the construction. We know the GDP is growing and the construction rates is growing. We know that it's a very well aware facts that the e-commerce is growing big line, and thus all the need for the packaging solutions is growing. We also see the trend of the ESG have been picking up over the past few years tremendously, and thus all the producers who used to produce, which is dry chemicals or the pet food or food manufacturers, which used to produce and pack it into the plastic, they're moving into the paper packaging. And we are a big beneficiary of all of it. If you look at the main products where we are represented, the Vision Hunter and Fisher International, which is the 2 most respective expert agencies, analytics agencies in our industry, they're producing forecasting that the industry will be growing on average about 2 to 5%. Now, given the size of the industry, which is in a million cubic meters or cubic tons, and the amount of it, the amount of forest which is required just to satisfy this growing rate and the demand to go with the growing rate, it is huge. And the 2021 is a good example of it. And we'll see that the problem will be growing even further. The forestry resources in other countries are not capable to support that growth. And as basic of economics, as soon as you see that the supply and demand curves are not matching itself, the pricing is going up. So we as a company now having today about 9.2 million hectares of forest or a 10.1 million annual cut of the forest. We're only utilizing about 50% of our forest. So our natural plan is to double the size of our production in the next 5 years. And for that, we have a brownfield projects, which is opening the bottlenecks, increasing automation, increasing the capacity of existing mill, as well as increasing further our forestry resources. And we have one of the major projects, which is the construction of a new pulp and paper mill for the next, within the next 5 years, for the volume of 1.5 million cubic meter, which is going to be a white paper, and also will allow us to have white cellulose, which is a product by itself, and we can go in different high value margin products as well. So giving the amount of the time that we have, I'd like to make it a bit more simple than to finish on the presentation. So on one side, we have a scarcity of the forest resources, and Russia is the only place where that resources are available. On another side, we have a strong market demand, which is going to be growing under the trends of the ESG and a more ecological packaging going forward. On another demand, we have ourselves as a Segezha group, who is today Russia's largest integrated forest company. And we just did an IPO in April of 2021. The IPO was 100% cash in, so the money stayed for the company to execute all of our investment projects, and the leverage significant to the group. Now the debt today is 1. That's all positioned ourselves for the next 5 years is growing from the Russian major into the global 8 to 10 companies in the world. So briefly about ourselves, and since we're running out of time, I would prefer to leave the colleagues more time with the questions.
Much. So, dear, I guess we may move forward to the Q&A session, right?
Yeah, okay, so now we have a brief Q&A session for all the speakers. So thank you for the good presentation from the Moex and the Segezha group. So now I'd like to deliver the questions from the audience and questions prepared on behalf of the audience. The first question is for the Moex. So as the Moex index is growing very fast this years, so as you mentioned in your presentation, you can get a large inflows from the retail investors, and there was regulatory changes on, especially on the ESG for the issuers. I think this positive change will be very helpful for the future development of Russian capital market. So Maria, so could you recommend any eligible financial products you can offer to the foreign investors who would like to invest on the Russian capital market? That is my first question.
Yes, thank you for this question. Actually, you are more than right, because recently we have launched a special segment related to the ESG bonds, so-called sustainable development sector on Moscow Exchange. Now we offer a range of green bonds and social bonds to the investors. So this is a new sector, but it's becoming more and more popular among Russian companies because in Russia there is also demand for ESG related instruments. We also offer other types of ESG products, including ESG indices, ESG bonds, as I mentioned, ESG indices, and we look at the ESG derivatives. So next stage, I guess we will offer ESG derivatives products. Regarding other types of new products we are offering, it's quite unique product offering in international stocks, major international stocks. By the year end, we'll have around like 500 names available, and later we will offer up to 1,000. Most liquid names are, some of them are from US, from Europe, and hopefully are from Asia as well, will be in our product range. So this is mostly for Russian investors, but there are also plans to have links with like other international venues to increase the liquidity in such products. And just as we have this webinar, I just realized that we have another topic that we may cover in future events, because we have a very liquid and very broad fixed income market. So we have both sovereign bonds issued by the Russian Ministry of Finance and corporate bonds. Of them are ESG is just one segment. We have many others, and they offer quite attractive yields to investors. And as I mentioned, Russia has investment great credit rating, and most of our issuers are also very solid names. So this may be the topic for a separate webinar. And as my colleagues mentioned, we have very long trading hours, and especially recent developments introducing early morning trading session, trading from 7 a.m. Moscow times, which can be quite attractive to Asian investors as well. So that's in general.
Okay, thank you very much. So my second question is also about the bond market. So I think the Korean investors more familiar with the US dollar or euro denominated bond rather than the Russian ruble denominated bond. So could you tell us how many bonds issuers have global credit rating, such as from the S&P or Moody's? And are those bonds are listed also in foreign exchange like London or Singapore? This question is might be Natalia.
Okay. Yes, you're right. Since the top Russian companies are commodity companies, they're quite active issuers of Eurobonds, either dollar denominated, most of them dollar denominated, some of them euro denominated. The most popular listing venues would be London, Ireland, Luxembourg, Singapore. And these companies, all of them have ratings, credit ratings from the top 3 credit rating agencies, be it Fitch, Moody's, or S&P. Some of them, a lot of them have investment grade ratings. Some of them can even pierce the sovereign ceiling because of these very strong cash flows that in hard currency that they produce. And yes, they issue these bonds. These are plain vanilla bonds. So the ESG component of Euro bonds, I haven't yet seen, but we have ESG local bonds that are issued by the same companies in the domestic market. And these bonds are available for purchase by international investors as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, plenty of issuers, different currencies, different maturities, but plain vanilla, and very solid credit standing because of the very strong cash flows, which are supported currently by another rise in commodity cycle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So maybe Korean investors can see the disclosure in English, the foreign stock exchange list. It is one from the Russian companies. So it will be very helpful for the bond investment. Okay, my third question is also for the Moex. I heard that there is a restriction on the foreign investment in a major industry like oil and natural gas in Russia. So could you briefly explain the foreign investment restriction in Russian capital market?
Yeah, I would say that there are several restrictions. In addition to what you just said, is mass media, is nuclear substances, and maybe national security, and maybe a few more. But the thing is that restriction to acquire more than 50%, so controlling stake with the company. Additionally, I would say that if you want to accumulate more than 25%, which is blocking holding, then you will need to seek an approval from the government authorities to do that. But the rest of is free of any restrictions, so you may invest as much as you want. Let's put it this way. So not so many restrictions, really.
Okay, thank you. So my last question is for the Segezha group. Is recently the cost push inflation, which of course due to the increase in the cost of a commodity, including perf and crude oil, so has become significant issue in the global financial market. So what would be the impact of such a commodity price on business activity, and what's your projection on the timber and perf market on volatility?
Yes, so yeah, so indeed you saw that all the commodity and the sourcing pricing are going up. However, in reality, what we see from the pulp, paper, birch plywood, sawn timber, only sawn timber have really went up to the level above 2019, and to be very frankly, to the very high levels that we haven't seen for the last 5 to 7 years. All others, whether it's a pulp or a paper or the birch plywood, in reality have only recovered to the levels of 2018 and 19. So yeah, so to answer your question, what we're also seeing even for the sawn timber that have reached the super high levels relevantly to the last 5 years, the supply and demand balance is still extremely unbalanced. For example, the China, you may know, usually holds about 1.5 million cubic meter of a sawn timber in their ports at any given point of time. Today, they're only holding 700. They went from 300 to the 700, and they still are not able to replenish it and go up to their normal levels, even at this high pricing. So the forest as a natural resource, the raw wood, which I was saying, the scarcity of it, it's actually rebalancing it. So it was a difference from all our commodity sectors and ourselves is that one has this peak that would go down. Ourselves have a peak on the sawn timber, and that's true. The rest is a normalization from the down that they were for the last years.
Okay, so I'd like to add one more question for the Segezha group. Are there any companies who cooperate with you, the Korean company, in your business? And if do you have any, I would like to hear about you, any plan to enhance this relation with the Korean companies? in the future.
Indeed. So we are the big sellers of the birch plywood to the Korea. It's actually a very specialized product that we have actually developed with the coordination of the Korean clients and customers. And we're also selling the paper, a sack paper for the packaging into South Korea. We are recently opened a trade house based in Singapore. So we will be penetrating, and the exposure over to the Asia market will be much larger. Today, the China as a naturally represents the biggest market, but the Korean market are a huge interest of ourselves. Now we see a strong demand, and our history is showing a very positive business.
Okay, this is all the session we prepared. Thank you for giving us the good presentation and informative answers to all the speakers and moderator. And I hope this webinar will be helpful to all the audience for the better understanding of Russian capital market. And this webinar will be distributed on the Kofia YouTube channel later. So I finished in this webinar in Korea. So do you have any comments, Alina?
Okay, I would like to thank all the
Okay.
participants. Yes, so thank you very much for your interest, and it's a great pleasure to present before such an audience. So thanks to my colleagues who took part in this event, and hopefully see you on the next events. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. See you on the next event.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.